to another Polytalks video, and today we will be discussing the possibility that Donald Trump, former president, will be arrested and what this could mean for so many political outcomes and potentially another event which rivals the January 6th United States Capitol attack. So, essentially, if you don't know, Donald Trump suggested and this is not authoritative or definitive, suggested that he will be arrested Tuesday. And this comes as Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is deciding whether to charge him in a probe, related to hush money, just one of his many scandals that has been investigated over the past few years by some sort of probe. And all of them have really fizzled out until this one. And this is certainly not a certainty. I still believe that there's a possibility they do not decide to charge him, but it's actually, I think, a wise political move for Donald Trump to suggest he's getting arrested, because if he's coming out before the election and saying, hey, I'm going to get arrested in a politically charged attack, and you guys should, or my followers should, protest and take our nation back in an event similar to the Capitol attack, then that actually puts pressure on this district attorney not to charge him for fear of the consequences. Whereas if Donald Trump had done this afterwards, he would just be called, a petulant figure that, is just annoyed when things don't go his way. Whereas if he's doing this before his arrest, it does actually seem like the arrest is politically charged to many, which is kind of an interesting take. But the most concerning implication of this is we could potentially have another event similar to this January 6th Capitol riot, which of course still lives in the memory of many people. It's over 2 years now, but it still is very fresh in the minds, and it's honestly one of the most significant attacks on the United States since the September 11 attacks, although it's interesting because it's actually domestic. There was no foreign threat, it came entirely within, and people died during this riot, and it was really a devastating, absolutely horrifying event, which is still not to be understated. And that is a very concerning outcome, because I'm sure that if Donald Trump is arrested, that is the peak of his, honestly, annoyance and agitation for his followers. If you think they led an organized Capitol riot following his election defeat, imagine the same thing if he is arrested even as he's trying to run a 2024 campaign. I think there would not be any one single protest like we saw with the Capitol riot, but I think there would be many, many isolated protests, and we could certainly see a resurgence in violence over the next few days, which goes back into my point of how this district attorney may feel pressured not to charge Donald Trump with this, this hush money scandal, and to simply write it off, because otherwise we could see a huge outburst of violence. And obviously that's not really how it's supposed to work. That should not be the main factor in these minds, but we have to think through a political and partisan lens, and not purely through a legal lens, because these people, Alvin Bragg, they are making political decisions, and I'm not suggesting they're necessarily ultra partisan, but they're certainly not just acting in a vacuum. We know that they are considering these considerations, and it'll also be extremely harmful to Democrats if Donald Trump is charged and then is not convicted, because that could be a huge rallying point for Donald Trump, and it could just inspire mass anger and calls for revenge, which could actually provide the impetus Donald Trump needs to win a second term in 2024. So this is a very risky move, and that's why I think there's a good chance that Alvin Bragg decides to back down. But if he doesn't, I'll make another immediate reaction/response video about whether and when we can expect some violence by his supporters and followers. And admittedly, his base has dwindled over the past few years. I don't think he has nearly as large a support base, regular since he was president. And I think that's because many centrists and such are moving away, but he still has a very loyal base. And the problem is, with all the centrists and quote unquote rhinos leaving that bucket of Donald Trump supporters, it means that the ones left are just concentrated in how loyal they feel to Donald Trump and the measures they would take to kind of avenge him. And this is really concerning because we could see an even worse attack potentially than the Capitol attack. So I will keep you updated on the situation, but it's simply very important to think about how the various political dimensions affect this, like why Trump is telling people he's going to get arrested Tuesday, and how this district office will respond. If I had to give a personal prediction, I'd say they're going to go ahead with the indictment, but I don't think Trump will face any consequences after all the hurly burly's done, which means that this could really end up agitating and enraging Republicans, especially those loyal to Trump, and it might even, depending on the circumstances, it might even anger those who left Donald Trump's support base, and that would be absolutely worst case scenario for Democrats, because then those centrist Republicans may feel compelled to support Donald Trump, and this is a very risky move for the district attorney's office, and I'm thrilled to see where it will end up. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Poly Talks. See you later. Bye.